Take it away.
Thank you, Barry. I was instructed to look at this from an international speech contest judge's guide and ballot, which I will now share with you. I hope everybody can see that. And I'll go through how I rated Keith. And by the way, that was just a fantastic speech. I loved every part of it. I loved how you put the overhead bin and how we stuff our childhood dreams. You worked that throughout the speech. So the first one is, and I realize you're looking for feedback, so I'll try to work on the feedback a little more than the kudos, but there were some major kudos, and maybe I'll go through those real quick right now. You had a really good stance. You weren't moving around. I mean, you didn't have any nervous gestures forward or backwards. Your hand gestures were very clean. You had a very nice, clean appearance. I would call it a Steve Jobs appearance with the shirt. Your sound, your voice was very clear through the mic you used. And I liked how you had 3 flight checks, and I'm going to try to talk about those just a little bit. The confidence to fail, ask for knowledge, and the 3 mistakes above ground. So first of all, speech development. I gave you a 16. And obviously there's no other speakers that I'm rating today, so you win, hands down. But the reason I didn't give you a higher score is it felt like half of your speech was the introduction before you got into the confidence to fail, ask for knowledge, and the 3 mistakes above ground. And I think that confidence to fail, maybe if you introduce those 3 topics initially and then work the stories in to fill those up, because the confidence to fail, you had several stories about that. One with the 11-year-old, and then when you crashed your plane yourself. So I would use a little bit, shorten up the introduction and work into these 3 flight checks that you talked about, work your stories into those. The effectiveness, achievement of purpose, I think everybody was very interested. It was a lot of fun. People can relate to overhead bins and flying. Your speech was, your ideas were, it was very original thought. I thought it was great. And let's see, next portion. I gave you a 13 for the effectiveness and a 15 for the value of the speech. And again, the 13 for the effectiveness was maybe just to organize it just a little bit differently. Your appearance, body language, speaking area, I gave you a 7 on that. Your background didn't add anything. And I don't know how much you can work with your background, but if you could put, you know, some trees that you're flying your plane into, or even show us a picture of your plane flying that somebody has photographed. Barry likes to do waves in the background when he's talking. I don't see his waves moving right now, but you could have a visual like that in your background. And the other thing about the body language, as I say, you were stationary, you weren't moving around, you had great hand gestures, but you also didn't move away from that mic. And I think if you could have maybe moved just a little bit when you transitioned to the different portions of your flight check, that might have been helpful. Voice, it was very, very clear, although I didn't see a lot of inflection. When you smashed it into a tree, for example, maybe you could clap and make a little bit of noise with it, and then have your plane drop down. You could even have a gesture with your hand moving across and bam, into a tree. So those are a couple ideas. The last 3, your manner, your directness, assurance, enthusiasm, the appropriateness and the correctness, I gave you 10s on all those. I thought those were all outstanding. Now I wanted to just talk about your flight checks. There is such a thing as a normal procedures checklist. So the confidence to fail could be your pre-flight inspection. and you could talk about your pre-flight inspection. And by the way, if you're interested, Keith, I can send you this normal procedures checklist. So you could have your pre-flight inspection as your confidence to fail, and you could tuck that under the seat in front of you, for example. And then you go through the stories of the failures that you've had with your plane. And now it's, you know, when you crash it into a tree, you have a big smile on your face. Ask for knowledge. And that could be before starting the engine. It could be before takeoff. There's a checklist for starting the engine. There's a checklist for before takeoff. There's a checklist after takeoff. So you could sequence this. The 3 mistakes above the ground could be during cruise, for example, your cruise checklist. And just to give you an idea what that cruise is, it's power, elevator trim, mixture, flight instruments, landing light, heading indicator. Of course, you have a model plane, so you could go with this type of checklist, but obviously it's for a model plane. The other one thing I heard you say was a RC plane, and you just kind of threw that in there, and I didn't look it up, and I still don't know what an RC plane is. So maybe if you're going to use an acronym, you should spell it out. And the final comment at the end of your speech, you don't need to thank us. We're thanking you. That was just a tremendous and such a fun speech. So don't end your speech by saying thank you. Just either stop. That's the Barry technique, and we're all wondering if he's done. The other technique would be to say, contest chair.